Every gun owner has one. That single purchase that looked like a smart move at the time, but turned into the safe queen of shame. The pistol that jammed when it mattered, the revolver that promised versatility, but shot like a novelty toy, the iconic hand cannon that drained your wallet faster than it cleared a magazine. Call it what you want, but it is the gun you regret. In 2025, regret has patterns. Certain models keep showing up in the same conversations, the same comment threads, the same resale racks where owners can't wait to offload them. Today we are counting down the 7 most regretted gun purchases, the ones that looked tempting in the ads, maybe even legendary on screen, but left owners disappointed in the real world. Some names you expect, others may sting a little, but every one of them carries the same lesson: buyer's remorse. The Taurus Judge was marketed as the revolver that could do it all. Chambered in both 45 Colt and 410 shot shell, it looked like the ultimate bedside protector, a hand cannon with options. That ad copy made it sound like a game changer, and for years, buyers flocked to it. Here is the reality in 2025. With 45, a Colt accuracy is passable, yet rarely inspiring. With 410 shells, the pattern is wide and the stopping power is underwhelming. Add the oversized frame-stout recoil and weight that makes it awkward for everyday carry. And what you have is a gimmick dressed up as versatility. The long cylinder for shot shells shifts weight forward and lengthens trigger reach. Concealment also suffers because the tall profile prints under light clothing for many. Owners have been candid about the experience. Some admit it is entertaining for a few cylinders at the range. Others call it the most disappointing home defense purchase they have made. A familiar story appears again and again: the Judge bought as a nightstand gun, then replaced by a simple 9mm after the owner saw that the pattern from 410 shells at bedroom distance was unimpressive when measured on paper. When it first hit the shelves, the Judge was marketed in the South as the carjacker's nightmare, and initial sales soared. But once the novelty wore off, real-world users quickly exposed its shortcomings. By 2025, the used market tells the story more loudly than marketing ever did. Shops struggle to move Judges that look almost new, and the novelty wears off quickly once the first box of shells is gone. Many buyers expected a miracle tool and ended up with a heavy compromise that does not excel at any task. The verdict for the Judge is clear. It promised the power of 45 Colt and the spread of a shotgun in one tidy package, yet in practice it delivers neither to a standard that builds confidence. That gap between promise and performance fuels regret, and it is why the Judge consistently shows up on lists of purchases that owners wish they had skipped. Few handguns carry the aura of the Desert Eagle. Immortalized in movies, video games, and rap lyrics, it is the pistol that looks larger than life. On screen, it is unstoppable. In the gun safe, it is something else entirely. The myth survives because spectacle is fun and memory is selective sometimes. Start with the weight. A loaded example tips past 4.5 pounds. Then add the recoil of a gas-operated Magnum pistol running 50 AE or 44 Magnum, and the cool factor begins to feel like punishment. Cost lands the next blow. In 2025, a single 50 AE round can run $2 or $3, which means a short-range session can equal a decent car payment. Owners notice the math and the fatigue. Many tell stories of proudly unboxing a Desert Eagle, showing it at the range, drawing stares from every lane. Reality hits after a couple of magazines. The blast rattles the booths, the recoil numbs the hands, and the wallet complains louder than the muzzle. The pistol often goes into the safe, brought out only to impress a new friend or to snap a photo. The used market in 2025 reflects regret. Nearly new Desert Eagles sit on consignment shelves because buyers realize they do not shoot them enough to justify ownership. Renting one at the range is a riot and a memorable checkbox. Owning one becomes a recurring reminder that glamour does not mean practicality. What many forget is that the Desert Eagle was even evaluated for potential military use, but its sheer bulk, excessive recoil, and impractical logistics doomed the idea almost instantly. The Desert Eagle is not a bad gun. It is a marvel of machining and raw power, a unique design that deserves respect. The problem is fit and purpose. Everyday shooters want reliable practice time without bruised palms and empty wallets. For that crowd, the Desert Eagle becomes a symbol of buyer remorse. Money sunk into a legend that looks brilliant on a movie poster, yet struggles to earn its keep in the real world. The Springfield XDS looked like the perfect answer for concealed carry. Slim profile single stack available in 45 AC and pushed hard in glossy ads as the carry gun you could trust. Thousands of buyers in the early 2010s believed it was the compact powerhouse they had been waiting for. But in 2013, a serious problem surfaced. The grip safety meant to be a feature of confidence could actually fail. The recall that followed was massive, and even though Springfield fixed the issue, the damage was done. Fast forward to 2025, and the XDS still carries that scarlet letter in conversations. Once a carry gun loses trust, it never fully recovers. The technical side adds to the regret. The aggressive grip texture is punishing during long practice sessions. The trigger is serviceable but uninspiring, and the narrow frame gives a snappy recoil impulse that makes 45 ACP feel brutal. Shooters report fatigue after only a few magazines. What was meant to be compact comfort often turns into an unpleasant experience. Anecdotes from owners underline this. One man walked into a shop hoping to trade in his pre-recall model. The dealer politely declined, explaining that resale demand for those versions is almost non-existent. That kind of rejection stings, especially when you thought you had bought a premium defensive pistol. Even years later at SHOT Show displays, the XDS could draw a crowd, yet behind the booth. The conversation always circled back to its recall, proving how one safety failure can tarnish a pistol's name for over a decade. By 2025, the XDS represents the uncomfortable truth that trust and reputation matter more than specs on paper. Many owners regret not only the recall itself, but the lasting market stigma that killed the gun's appeal. If you want a symbol of how quickly a promising design can fall from grace, the Springfield XDS stands as a permanent reminder. And it remains a cautionary tale whispered at ranges and gun counters whenever someone asks about compact carry pistols that look good on paper but inspire little confidence once real stories are told. The Kel-Tech PF9 once held bragging rights as the thinnest, lightest 9mm pistol on the market. For concealed carriers that sounded like freedom a gun, you could slip into a pocket holster and forget until you needed it. It was affordable, innovative, and extremely compact. But innovation does not guarantee satisfaction. Owners quickly realized that shaving every ounce off the frame came at a painful cost. The PF9 is notorious for its brutal recoil. The tiny grip and featherlight frame translate every shot directly into your hand. Two magazines in shooters often describe feeling as though they have been high-fiving a brick wall. Comfort is non-existent, and range sessions end early. Reliability also drags down its reputation. Feed issues and failures to eject show up often in reports, especially when running cheaper ammunition. The long, heavy trigger adds another layer of frustration, making accurate follow-up shots difficult. What begins as excitement for a carry gun turns into disappointment at the range. One owner's story highlights the common pattern. After purchasing a PF9 for everyday carry, he practiced once and found his palm bruised. The pistol went into a drawer where it stayed until he finally sold it at a loss. That story is echoed countless times in forums and comment threads. At its debut, the PF9 actually claimed the record as the lightest production 9mm pistol, a milestone that turned into a curse, because the very feature that made it attractive also magnified recoil to unbearable levels. By 2025, the PF9 still circulates on the used market, but prices plummet fast. Many buyers admit they picked one up because of size and cost, only to discover they never actually carried or shot it. A defensive pistol you dislike shooting is the definition of regret. The PF9 deserves credit for being bold, but boldness without balance is a recipe for frustration, and that lesson still echoes loudly in conversations among shooters today. When Remington announced the rebirth of the R-51, enthusiasts leaned in with excitement. The original design from the early 20th century had charm, and the promise of a modern update sounded irresistible. On paper, it looked sleek, thin, and ideal for concealed carry. In practice, it quickly became one of the most regretted handguns of the last decade. The delayed blowback system, a unique feature, proved troublesome. Reports of constant feeding problems, failures to go into battery, and sharp recoil for such a small pistol piled up quickly. The ergonomics were uncomfortable. The slide felt stiff and accuracy suffered. Instead of resurrecting a classic, Remington had built a pistol that embarrassed the brand further. One competitor at a local match recalled bringing an R-51 onto the line only to suffer jam after jam until withdrawing from the stage. Public embarrassment on top of wasted money turns regret into bitterness, and the R-51 has that effect on many. Even those who kept theirs describe it as a gun they never carry, never trust, and rarely shoot. By 2025, resale prices underline the disaster. Many used R-51s can be found for half of their original MSRP, sometimes even less, because demand is almost non-existent. Gun shops often avoid taking them in on trade, not wanting to sit on a gun with such a toxic reputation. The R-51 could have been a triumph, a true nod to history with modern engineering. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about hype, poor execution, and the dangers of rushing a design. Owners regret buying it not just because it performs poorly, but because it represents a betrayal of expectations. When a firearm you trust your safety with turns into a range punchline, regret is guaranteed. Budget pistols have an undeniable appeal. The Taurus PT-111 G2 and later the G3C promised Glock-like reliability at half the price. For a lot of buyers, especially first-time carriers, that was enough to seal the deal. Unfortunately, many of those same buyers now admit they regret it. Quality control remains the Achilles heel. Some G2s and G3Cs run smoothly, others suffer misfeeds, light strikes, or broken parts within the first 1,000 rounds. The inconsistency alone erodes confidence. Add in complaints about spongy triggers, rust-prone finishes, and clunky ergonomics, and you have a pistol that simply feels like a gamble. One owner described carrying a G2 daily until a practice session where 2 consecutive jams made him rethink everything. That pistol was traded the same week for a used Smith & Wesson M&P. Stories like that spread quickly, turning supposed budget victories into cautionary tales. Between 2018 and 2022, these models ranked among America's top-selling budget carry pistols, yet they also generated some of the highest complaint volumes and even class action suits that dragged on into 2025. In fairness, the G3C improved on some details, but the history of recalls still haunts Taurus. In fact, between 2015 and 2025, the company faced multiple lawsuits and settlements over safety problems. For many owners, the brand itself carries a stigma that overshadows any single pistol model. By 2025, the resale market reflects this reputation. Used Taurus compacts are abundant, usually priced far below competitors. For some, they remain an entry-level option. For others, they represent the disappointment of trusting a bargain with your life. The lesson from the PT-111 G2 and G3C is not just about one gun, but about expectation versus reality. People wanted a dependable daily carry. What they got was a roll of the dice. That sense of betrayal when a defensive pistol feels unreliable creates some of the deepest regret any owner can experience. If regret had a mascot, the Hi-Point C9 would be wearing the crown. No other pistol has become such a universal shorthand for disappointment. Walk into any gun shop and you will hear the same refrain, cheap, heavy, clunky, and almost always the first firearm a new shooter regrets buying. The appeal is obvious. In 2025, you can still pick up a brand new C9 for under $200. For beginners, that looks like an unbeatable entry point. But as soon as the first range trip ends, the shortcomings start to scream. The slide is a massive chunk of zinc alloy pot metal, making the gun heavier than many double-stack 9mm. The trigger is mushy, the ergonomics are awkward, and accuracy often trails far behind competitors. Reliability is the nail in the coffin. Owners report stovepipes failures to feed and constant jams once the round count climbs. That lifetime warranty Hi-Point advertises is used so often it has become a punchline in itself. One shooter told of bringing a C9 to the range only to endure so many malfunctions that nearby shooters offered him their guns to try instead. The embarrassment lingers longer than the bruises on his hands. Resale in 2025 paints the picture perfectly. Used C9s flood pawn shops and classifieds, often listed for little more than $100. Owners unload them not because they are unsafe, but because they simply hate shooting them. The regret is not subtle, it is overwhelming. To be fair, a Hi-Point will go bang often enough and some loyalists defend them fiercely. But the consensus is clear. For most buyers, the C9 is a false economy money saved up front only to be lost in frustration and resale value. That combination makes it the undisputed #1 regret gun. Every gun owner learns the hard way that hype low prices or Hollywood glamour do not guarantee satisfaction. These 7 pistols and revolvers prove that regret is part of the journey, but also a valuable teacher. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment and tell me which firearm you regret buying the most or the one you swore you would never trust again. Don't hold back. Your story might help someone else avoid the same mistake. Thanks for watching. I appreciate every one of you, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe and shoot straight.